Hey, what the
Hello.
hex?
What the hex?
Hey guys, welcome to the new show on Disco Syndicate every Thursday. What the hex is episode number 2 with myself and Papa Bona. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you. It is only midnight over here in Tokyo, Japan. It's great to be with you, and especially for this momentous episode with a very special guest.
Got a very special guest, and I can see him already. He's back there in our green room. He's munching away on the cheese biscuits. So I guess without further ado, one could say, let's bring him on the show. We've got the man, the myth, the legend in the house. He hails from the land of Down Under, where they eat Vegemite sandwich until the kangaroos come home. He is the King Kong of Brisbane.
Where are you going with this line? Okay,
the beautiful Tom Peter Gillespie here.
Tom Peter Gillespie.
Welcome to the show.
Appreciate it.
How are you doing?
All good. I had a little go at the lighting there. See if I could improve it a wee bit, but what do you reckon? Is it better than it was before, or
marginally? But we still love you, so it's okay. We'll give you that. We'll turn up the gain on you.
We are big fans of your work, you know. I think to set the tone for the conversation, because we want to, of course, ask you everything about the documentary that you've done, the 4-piece miniseries Hexicans and the time value of money and the production and how that all came together. Is it okay with you if we, from your press media package that you send out, if we just play the 2-minute trailer at the beginning? Because I think that sets the perfect tone for the conversation. Is that all right?
That's perfect, mate. Perfect.
All right, roll it, DJ Crypto.
Let's run it. Okay, hold on.
He used to be a kind of a Bitcoin maximalist.
He actually really wants people to like him.
All right, Hexicans, Tom Gillespie here.
Wait a second, is that him in the window? Zoom into that window.
And then he said, I'll explain the project to you and you can tell me your opinion. But that was before I knew that he had like a strategy with this.
A lot of mechanisms are built into HEX. Again, sort of a funnel wealth towards the founder.
Here's a whole bunch of tokens so that you can cash out when the market is sufficiently inflated.
I mean, I do think it is by design that HEX is this complicated.
Richard, as a public figure, is the face of HEX. He's the guy who came up with the idea.
I decided that I didn't think it was ethical and good for me to be invested in any amount.
He's figured out a way to use the scam narrative in crypto to his advantage.
Oh, you about to make Hexicans mad at me.
The thing about Richard, he's a really strong character.
When everyone else is calling it a scam and you're trying to, onboard your friends and family and they don't really want to hear about it, like that sucks because they're missing out on such a good opportunity.
He'll say, well, this is why it's not a scam. This is why it's not a Ponzi. This is why it's not a pyramid.
The HEX community really, they're just such a positive community.
There's nothing that Richard can do to affect my account because I hold my private key.
I think that Richard had been in the cryptocurrency industry long enough to know which type of actions would get labeled as what.
If you're going to a circus, you expect to see clowns. But not everybody in attendance at that circus is necessarily a clown.
No, we have to go. We have
Tom Gillespie here. I'd like to ask you a couple of questions about decentralization.
Everything is motherfucking possible.
What is a god whale? What is WAGMI?
We have no idea.
I am wondering why people are so worried about the OA.
Richard, come down, mate. Come down from your castle now.
A lot of people are going to get hidden criticism.
Who's heard of HEX?
It doesn't have to be one cult for a decentralized network.
Tomo, mate, we have some serious competition here.
Happy Valentine's Day to Richard Hart.
Hand back the fucking phone now. Stop playing King Silly Buggers. Fucking hell.
Damn, that's so powerful.
Very nice. And in case you in chat or watching this later have not seen this documentary, and you are at all interested in cryptocurrency or especially HEX and want to unravel the deepest, darkest secrets of our dark alchemy that we prize we keep so close to the vest, then watch every damn second of this 4-part miniseries that Mr. Tom Gillespie has put together. Incredible. And today in the show, I look forward to examining He Who Examines. So, Tom, I'm going to set this stage for you. I'm going to ask you the seriously hard questions, proposing to you in still capture form some very interesting things that I caught in the series without spoiling it for the viewers, I hope. But by your leave, I will put you through a veritable ringer, so to speak, if you don't mind.
Okay. Righto.
All right.
Right on.
So, DJ Cryptomatic, a little warm up before we hit him with the big stuff, because you're a big fan of his previous work that we should also mention.
I am.
Maybe you'd like to set that up for us as well. Tell us a little bit about the Fake Fluencer.
The Fake Fluencer. I mean, Tom, when you came on our HEX scene, so to speak, which was, what would you say, was that 1.5 years ago? I think that's about the journey you've been with us in the community, or was that longer?
No, that's accurate. But obviously, there was the interview with Richard himself. That
Before,
was
yes.
another year earlier or something.
Okay, and I saw you on the Twitters, and I think we've been tweeting back and forth around that time when you came on the scene, if I remember correctly. And back then, I started looking into you, and I was like, I immediately liked the comedic aspect of it all. And then, of course, I looked at that Fake Fluencer investigation, and I just have to say, man, the scooter coin. And we tagged them. You actually tagged them into tweet to promote the show today, which was funny. And spending like 20 minutes watching into that Fake Fluencer story, I felt like so at home, because that is exactly what happened to me as well when I joined. And crypto was in 2017, and the craze of all these new altcoins emerging. And it's really the story that you tell, that that little boy who is the scooter enthusiast and then invests the little bit of his hard-earned savings because he gets shilled this coin by, we call them furus, you call them Fake Fluencer in that piece, because that's really the go-to drug, right? When you start in crypto, and then you look around on YouTube. It's actually Johnny Chaos, who you also interviewed big time in the HEX documentary. He calls them the Walmart greeters of the crypto space. And I've never seen a Walmart greeter, but I've been to a Home Depot, and there I've seen a Walmart, like a Home Depot greeter. He had like the apron on, and when you walk into the store, it's like, hello, mate, what can we do for you? What are you looking for? And
welcome to Costco. I love you.
Yeah. Costco. Yeah, we have to mention other names.
That Idiocracy is one of my favorite flicks.
It's a good one. It's a good film.
And you would then say, yeah, I'm just looking for some paint and some paintbrush. Oh yeah, that'll be over here in aisle number 3. And so it's the same with the Fake Fluencers. They come onto the crypto scene and say, hey, I want to invest some money in crypto. What is the next coin that will pump the hardest? And the Furu would say, oh yeah, sure, just look over here, we have those 3 altcoins. And you went into like very much detail to uncover that whole scene. How did you manage to actually track down these people? Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, how did you must have, is that all you, or do you have an investigation team that helps you with tracking down these leads? And were you scared at all to interview these founders and coders in these abandoned warehouses with the storm mask on?
Never scared, mate. Never scared. But most of the people I got connected through this app called Telegram, right? That's where all the crypto folk hang out. So most of my leads came through there, and that's the same with the HEX investigation as well. So Telegram's my go-to, although I'm more of a lurker than anything. So yeah, I went on that journey through this Bitman 360 crypto influencer fella, and
Right.
he opened up, a world of pain, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because I've been heading down this crypto rabbit hole for a good few years now, and it's only, as you would have seen if you've watched the documentaries, it's only been, losses so far, not so profitable.
Right.
But yeah, so I mean, there was a number of questions there, mate. So I'm not sure. I think if I've answered them all or not.
Yeah, Tom.
Well,
Tom,
I just basically want to praise like the well, how can you say that you're really going in there and you really ask these hard questions and interview and track down these people, and you get scared of people try to run you off their lawn and you're still going after the story. So and that is the context what I saw about you when you came on the scene first, and I was actually a little bit scared, like, oh my God, he better not look at the HEX community that we have, because if we will do that in a similar fashion than the fake fluencer, then we might be in a bit of trouble here. Puppet B.
Well, I mean, the Hexicans are the ones that triggered this investigation, right? There was a vote at the end a year and a half ago. There was a vote. It was between HEX and something called BitNation, which had been around for a lot longer than HEX. And the Hexicans smashed the vote, basically. And actually, the other BitNation just seemed to have a load of bots put on it. So there was definitely someone who wanted it investigating, but all they did was throw a bunch of bots at it. And
So you're saying we asked for it?
I disregarded the bots, basically, from the vote.
Right.
And this is what happened.
Awesome,
excellent.
But that said, I was in touch, because obviously I was in touch with a couple of Aussie Hexicans off the back of the interview with Richard Hart.
Yeah,
and so I did maintain a bit of a conversation with a fella there. I haven't spoke to him for a good long while now, since a year and a half ago or something, because he also had ambitions to make a documentary, which I don't know if he went ahead and did that or not. But
so this goes back. You've been lurking effectively in the Hexican chats and making inroads into the community for over 2 years now.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's what I would call a little bit more than a long lurk. You've really kind of. Anyway, in my talk with you, I'm going to want to also find out how this has affected you and personally throughout that entire 2 years of investment of your time and your mind, because for us, we're a little bit off kilter because we've dedicated ourselves, 3-4 years into this whole thing, but something has to have rubbed off on you too. A little bit of that, change in perspective, so to speak.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've I've listened to Richard speak quite a bit, and a lot of the things that he has mentioned that are not directly related to HEX, more broader commentary on the crypto space, have resonated throughout. So there is I think there's a video on YouTube. I think it's my midway vlog or something, and he mentions something about picking up free coins and just basically parking them, forgetting about them, coming back in a few years. And that's resonated with me, because I think that might actually be the best trading strategy in crypto, to be honest. Just collect all of the crappy coins and just, park them somewhere safe and forget about them. Come back in a few years. Some of them will probably do okay. Most of them will not, but it will even out because they didn't cost fuck all in the beginning. That's one example at least. But getting into the good stuff, obviously, all the conversation around the origin address, specifically in the HEX project, inspired me to look at how other projects operate, or the function of their origin addresses. and how we can sort of start to understand from that perspective how decentralized a project actually is, and how much, where should our trust be parked, for how long, to what degree, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, this is those people that like to play the market and speculate, the casinos, right? Whereas somebody who just buys up coins or gets free airdrops or whatever and parks them doesn't have to think about this shit. They don't really care about the tech. It's more of a punt, take a punt, like 100 punts, 100 shit coins or whatever. You only need a couple of them to come good and you're fine. Didn't cost you nothing. Especially not the amount of attention that it requires to make a fucking documentary, that's for sure.
Speaking of documentary and budgets and things and money going this way and that, let's get into it. DJ Cryptomatic, can you bring me up to the top? And let's get into this whole thing, because I think we got just enough time to cover it.
I've got a couple of questions here. Hang on.
All right. So Tom, again, I'm going to reveal things. Hopefully we're not spoiling anything. If I am spoiling, call it out, and I'll probably ignore you, but go ahead and call it out anyway, just for fun. Here we open up on your epic journey, and you kind of have this dovetail from your previous work. This is Bitman 360 in metaverse form, where you are briefed by him. Now he's become your spirit animal of sorts on this journey, and he's the one that actually gives you the details and turns you on to the Hexagon community. Is that the gist of it?
That's true, mate. Yep, that's exactly right.
Okay. And knowing what we know from the first documentary, your exploration into that space, you're now taking him for his word, and you've learned to trust him. That's really cool that you're kind of changing your worldview, and now you've got this guide. Then I really like a specific movie, and and correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm going down the wrong rabbit hole here, but I kind of see this journey as, and get this, let me put the pieces together. It's your own heart of darkness. And the pun is not lost on Hexagons. Heart of Darkness, and the movie specifically Apocalypse Now, where this briefing is a lot like, I guess you could say Captain Benjamin Willard is about to embark to go up the river and find the end of his mission, and he has to evolve to the end of it. Would you also, can you comment at all that if I got this straight at all?
I have no idea what you're bloody talking about, man.
Beautiful, beautiful. I'll take that as a yes. And suddenly, and this is really surprising to me, and I think the rest of the community, you successfully, within like 5 minutes, you've infiltrated Hexaco City. And this, nobody that isn't a Hexagon can get in there. And I want to know exactly, other than falling from outer space, how did you manage such access?
Yeah.
Well, listen, Batman 360, in that opening sequence there, he basically he led the way, mate. We were in Cryptopia, and I assume Batman 360 has been a Hexagon for some time, it seems. I mean, he's holding auctions in there. He's doing all kinds of, he DJs, and he's rapping and what have you. So if anybody, and actually, now that I think about it, I think I did see a clip on Facebook, I think it was, from Bitman 360. He actually played a role in developing that metaverse Hexaco City location. So it's kind of partly his baby, which means I was taken there by one of the very craftsmen that spent such time and energy putting that thing together, as ugly as it is.
Well, come on, we try. There's nothing particularly wrong with it. We kind of take mild offense to that mention, but okay.
Well, it's not kind on the eyes, is it? It's not a good color combination. But,
well, I mean, Richard
has all gradients.
Yeah, the gradient is a bit of a problem to color coordinate.
Test it.
Yeah. So anyway, let's move on, because we go back to the real world where Tom Gillespie, international man of mystery, is in. Would you call this car more fancy or schmancy, Tom?
Can it not be both, mate? I mean, it can be fancy schmancy, right?
Sure. That the duality of the fancy schmancy can be achieved, and it looks to be a Bentley of some strange origin.
Yeah. It's 75 years old, that vehicle. It's my great-great-grandfather's.
That's amazing. Complete with cassette tape deck, no less.
Yeah. I actually I had that put in about 10 years ago.
Oh, that's a retrofit.
It is, because I have a shitload of tapes and they're just hanging around the place doing nothing. So I had to make use of them some way. And interestingly, you can actually now get podcasts directly onto tape.
Really?
Yeah, you can order podcasts on tape. I think it's not Apple, but some sub company of Apple.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be a little bit concerned though, because you've got the top of the vehicle is a convertible, and with the sun beating down on you. I remember back in the 70s and 80s when I used to have cassette tapes, you'd leave them in a car like that and they would just be melted into a taco by the time you got back to them. Were you worried about this type of thing?
I wasn't worried about that, mate, because you'll see a glove box in one of the shots there as well. Inside that glove box is temperature controlled unit, specifically for keeping my tapes out of the hot Australian sun.
Fantastic. Wow. So we move on to we're peering now into your due diligence layer, where I see such things in the background like a full set of the Encyclopedia Britannica and some VHS cassettes. Arguably, there's more efficient ways to kind of get those brought into the 21st century. But why do you depend on such analog type of research equipment?
Well, I wouldn't say that they're not antiquated. For example, I used Apple iMovie to make the series and to prepare all my edits and sequences and what have you. And that's quite a new piece of technology software. I believe it came out in 2010 or something. And in terms of why I research using books and tapes and what have you, it's because that's just what I have lying around. Okay. So.
Very good. Interesting. And then here's something I don't mean to be revealing too much, but this really, when you're setting things up, you get feedback, and this one really, I think, epitomizes the position that I was really interested in you delving deeply into, and that is the fact that people pass judgment but don't have time to explain why they're negative on something. And breaking through that is something I'm wondering how you accomplished, because every other person that goes and delves deeply into HEX, the community, to expose the soft underbelly, immediately knows everything through assumption. And yet you somehow have put in the time, the effort, and have come to a very pragmatic, unbiased, and informed decision on what you've laid out in this entire epic journey. How did you break through where others could not?
Well, possibly it's because I wasn't, while I began the investigation solely looking at HEX and the Hexagon community, I started quickly, picked up on the fact that there's many cryptocurrency communities out there. And so, one starts to see patterns amongst these communities, and that allowed me to sort of broaden my investigatory horizon, if you like, because while it's titled Hexagons and the Time Value of Money, what I realized on my journey was that the questions and the conversations and the scam narratives and what have you that existed upon HEX from whomever, external forces, potentially internal forces, exists within all of these cryptocurrency projects, as you know, along with an OA and all the other baggage that comes with that. And so I started to sort of see that I could place HEX within a broader picture of the crypto space. And I think, again, if you watch the series, I think I've kind of captured that. And
yes,
this universal term, which is, you know, bandied about a lot, is decentralization, because you can't have any of this shit without that. That seems to be like a fundamental core principle of the tech, right? And I guess that's what allowed me to stay neutral and objective, even, you know, after trying the product, which really, you know, gave me a big fucking headache when it came to getting the opposition to talk, because if they, you know, they're like, why you know, you're staked, you're a hexagon, we're not talking to you. So I had a lot of trouble getting the opposition to pipe up, trying to explain, look, I'm testing the product, you know, and come and talk to me about it. But eventually I managed to find a good few people to talk
But would you
to.
say it's fair to say that it was easier to get opposition to talk in the Scooter coin production versus the HEX investigation?
The Scooter coin community is probably about 5 kids in Brisbane City skate
In Brisbane.
park.
Brisbane.
Yeah, exactly. So that guy, he got stuck in beta or alpha or whatever with his Buttercup 3 device, and you know, he's an entrepreneur. There's many of them out there in crypto land. So sometimes they're just shitty entrepreneurs, and sometimes they're, you know, rug pulls, and it's difficult to tell, especially because you got to trust. You not only got to trust what you see on the chain, you got to trust the guy that's telling you what you just saw happen on chain.
Yeah,
you know. So removing that trust element, the human side of things is impossible. But what you're going to end up with is, you know, most projects replacing those individuals with, you know, groups that maybe get larger and larger over time, but eventually destroy themselves, eat themselves from within out.
Okay.
Like you just said, this kind of segues into the next slide here. By staking, effectively, you become tainted by the outside world. You've now become a true hexagon because you did your research, you understood what was going on, and now you're trying out the staking process. And once you've staked, you've effectively defined yourself, or you've become what we all are, and that is a hexagon. That's all that there really is to it.
That's fair for you to say so, but I disagree.
So what's the difference then between someone who researches it and participates and sticks with it and commits? You know, what other step do you have to be to become a hexagon?
Well, I think you have to have a residential address in Hexco City. And
that was a secret.
And also you need to be in the music video.
Right.
So then that's what I mean when I say there's not actually so many true thoroughbred hexagons out there.
I see. Very good point. Very good.
We call them foxicans.
Falsicans, yeah.
Falsicans, yeah.
You fellas have got words for everything, haven't you?
But it's pronounced fuck. Yeah.
No, and enough of that. Come on now. Respect our less than purebloods.
Just quoting Richard.
Yeah, I get it. So here we go, Tom. Moving right along. Your first destination is the good old US of A. How did you get this shot? Was this a tracking dolly shot? Was it a crane shot? Was it a kid on the back of his skateboard with an iPhone? How did you get this low angle Tom Ford-esque type of cinematography?
It's bloody good shot, isn't it? It's Tomo, mate. Tomo, you know, Tomo was with me, you know, on all of these trips. He's the camera operator. Tommy's the audio guy, but he's never fucking around. He's always, you know, AWOL for some reason, but we won't get into that. Let me try and remember now. I think he had a it's like a pole thing, and it's got some spikes coming off of it. And then on the top there's a camera, and the camera kind of is stabilized by this pole. I think he was holding that and walking backwards.
Is it a prerequisite? Is it a prerequisite to be part of your team that your name must be Tom, in some derivation of?
No, it's just by happenstance, eh? I mean, Tom's an everyman name. Everybody knows a Tom, probably more than Tom. I personally know at least 15.
15?
Yeah, at least 15 Toms. It's a very popular name, especially in Australia.
Wow.
And America, I'd imagine.
I don't know any Papa Boners.
No, but that's a unique name, that is.
Yep.
Is that German or?
It was in my family. The true pronunciation is Boehner, but because I've got such dicks in my family, I pronounce it Boner.
Okay.
By the way, this begins more of the rabbit hole type of stuff. I want to call to everyone. I'm going to hit on something that is cutting very too close to the bone here and exposing you, Tom, for putting these tidbits, these Easter eggs in for only the true Hexicans to find. But when you get to Florida, you have this shot of this Mercedes, and I couldn't help but kind of squint my eye and look at the license plate. And correct me if I'm wrong, but if you squint your eye just so, this says T. Peter Gill. It's like it's a call. It's calling you. How did you get this into the movie? That is a totally random type of thing. Is this CGI, or how did you get this going?
Mate, that's that's epic research that you've put in there. I didn't notice it myself.
Yeah.
I guess possibly the Apple iMovie software made some technical graphical adjustments on my footage to get this result, but I can't be sure. I'll have to look at that in more detail.
Like we thought your PA maybe ordered this
bait material for conspiracy.
It is. Well, hey, the Hexicans are down with all conspiracy theories, and we'll get to more.
Want to get to the truth.
The internet in general, I've noticed.
Yep, exactly.
Everybody loves a good conspiracy online.
Well, absolutely, they do. In this day and age, it seems like nothing else. And now follow me here. There's some more in Florida that we notice as well. The young lady here on the jet ski is clearly showing you the up and to the right motion with her hands, which is a Hexican dog whistle, I think you would call it.
I'm aware.
Okay, good.
Oh, that's a good catch. That's a good catch.
Thank you. How about this? This next screenshot is also very interesting. I think this is very deep. This I call this one, and this is very, very interesting.
Yeah, what the hex?
What the hex on this one? Is this not the SS FUD with all the haters going out to sea? Out to sea. What do you think of this? Take a look at the note.
It could certainly be interpreted as such.
Well, take a look at the lower right-hand corner. I would say that that's pretty obvious.
I mean,
FUD.
No, that's bang on, mate. You've got a keener eye than myself. Are you also an editor?
I am I cannot disclose, I cannot confirm nor deny what I do in my spare time, but seeing your doco in depth and really getting into it, it brought me to a different level to try to find out the truth behind things. And it will get even darker and deeper soon.
Well, you're doing an epic job, mate. And
thank you.
I'd very much appreciate your work.
Well, thank you very much. Now we go to the con, and isn't that the use of the word con, as we say, to mean convention, but also could be some kind of nefarious activity. And instantly you're approached by a very thirsty influencer who saw your amazing equipment and instantly wants to contribute. And is this normal for you when you attend these things, that sometimes observing the thing that you are observing changes it? Like it's the scientific fallacy, for example. By observing something, you actually change it somehow. Do you feel that was what happened when you went to this convention?
Absolutely. And that's largely because, like the fella says, we had some bloody professional looking equipment with us. And also the fact that that was, to be fair, the only guy that approached us. Most of the other people we approached, and we didn't hand pick them because basically most people were too fucking busy peddling their wares, right? Their various services.
Yeah.
But when it comes to attending something like this and changing it, I don't imagine that I did that in real time, but given enough time and enough people's eyeballs on this series, I imagine it will be looked at in retrospect differently to how it was in reality.
Beautiful.
Purely because I chose where to put the cuts.
Speaking of cuts, there's one that didn't escape my eagle eye. You were seemingly drawn for a couple of shots to this, shall we call it, sensory overload of flamingos, and you were just mesmerized by it. And there's a very strange still in just a couple of frames of action. I noticed that you had this kind of shock and horror filled gaping mouth type of effect on the screen. And I was wondering, I played it back so many times, I couldn't understand what about it was hitting me on a subliminal level. You know, what is Tom trying to give us, the audience? And then I went about enhancing this slowly. And let me show you what I found. You know, I really concentrated on the mouth because it's got the most horror, the curled tongue, the you know, the bottoms of the teeth are exposed completely in an almost yelling fashion. And I see in the back of the mouth, there's something that's kind of appearing, and I enhance further and I go in and it looks kind of like a human form. And I go in even further and I get this kind of screwed up, pixelated, looks almost like the top of a person's head. And finally, in one 36-hour, and it's good that you didn't come in the last show because it took 36 hours to enhance this further, and this is going to shock you. It really does turn out to be in the back of your mouth in this one single frame of your video. There he is. Can you explain this?
Mate, I cannot. And I can only imagine this is a function of iMovie fucking up in post-production.
It's the good old Apple.
There was a lot of graphics. I had a lot of graphics in there, so maybe one of them got shrunk down and placed in my mouth while I was.
Is it a reflection or something from a different video got superimposed like
I think it's a
standard
graphic.
film?
It's a graphic that's been it's been put in there somehow. Maybe I hit the mouse. And
the mouse.
But that's like, just to clarify, that there is no conspiracy to look into this any deeper.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I've already looked as deeply as I could, so to speak.
But with that, you yeah. Okay. Right on. On you go. Keep going.
Okay. Now, back
Can
to
can I just
Yeah,
interject one thing? Because you
Please.
were looking at the NFT wall there, and I think that's probably my most favorite scene in that in the second part of the miniseries, when you interviewed that lady who has like the white with the cleavage hanging out, and she was like really all on about NFTs, bringing the rights back to the artist and cutting out the middleman. And then you immediately said, which just underlines the brilliance of your investigation, like, yeah, but I've seen many people around here shilling galleries, to advertise these NFTs.
Yeah,
and then
no,
she couldn't know what to answer. She didn't know what to answer to that because that's
she's not
middleman.
alone. She's not alone, mate. There's a lot of artists, NFTs, and where NFTs meet artists, there's a shit ton of middlemen peddling their services, and it's kind of, yeah, it's sad to watch because it's often the younger bunch, right, who get sort of duped into this stuff. But yeah, no, that's a great little interview. That I think her name was Or. She was an artist from Israel, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So back to Hexaco City for a moment. where this is really interesting because this is another member of our cast of this show. This is the representation in Hexico City metaverse type of his personage there. You're talking to him at length. His name is Markable Thoughts. He also goes by Land Whales Only One. And it's interesting that you found him because he's our lowest common denominator in our entire community. In terms of IQ, he's the lowest. In terms of the ability to walk straight and chew gum at the same time, lowest. Oh, yeah. And to make matters worse, he's got a twin brother. So there's two of these idiots walking around the world. But I'm telling you now that judging by what you got out of him here, does that not say a great deal about our community being kind of high IQ guys? Because he's our worst, and yet I was really taken about what he said here in this clip, what you got out of him through this interview. What do you think?
You know, well, I'll have to take your word for it about him being the lowest common denominator. But specific, I think I spent a good hour and a half with that guy actually, and I mean, he came across very, very calm and confident, and like he knew what was going to happen, and that he might have even built this machine himself.
Very good. Very good. You know that he's only 18 years old and he's got a beard the size of, Mount Rushmore, right?
Yeah, I'm aware. I've seen some pictures of him IRL.
Yeah. And then back to the actual real world. Again, I'm drawing there's a parallel to be drawn between Apocalypse Now again and what you're going through, because definitely Carlos Matos, claiming, of course, to have had some kind of relationship or discussion with Richard Hart, which is suspicious as hell. Really looks like this Dennis Hopper character at the end. This insanity brewing. Look at those crazy eyes that he's giving you. Were you at all scared when you were talking to Carlos Matos?
When I watched the footage back and tried to assemble it, I was more scared. But
more scared. Yeah.
In the moment at that time, I wasn't, because there was plenty of people around, so I didn't feel terrified in the moment. However, that was one of the most sort of impassioned interviews I've had in my career, to be honest.
Yeah, you even hugged him at the end.
He gave me a big old hug at the end after shouting at me about anything being fucking possible or something.
Yep.
And that was a great interview. And I will, I don't know if you fellas know, but just the previous slide, you saw that little QR code on the nameplate.
Mm-hmm.
When you scan those QR codes, you're going to go and get access to the full interviews from all these interviews, the actual full length. So that one, I'll put that up. I'll get around to doing that sooner or later. But
sure. It
was a short interview. I think most of it's in. I got the bit where he compares himself to Hitler as well, right?
That one shot me through the roof, because when did it become okay to say Hitler was a great orator? He just had his message wrong. And that's what effectively he said to you, right?
I was a little bit flabbergasted at that comment, but I guess he just lost his train of thought or something.
I don't think this man has ever had a train of thought, but it's okay. Or maybe just the caboose. Anyway, moving along. So you're effectively on this journey. You're leaving the United States. And by the way, if I screwed up the timeline, I apologize. I'm just so excited and sweating bullets preparing for this thing. But let's just imagine that it's the correct timeline. You're leaving the United States, and then at some point you break away and you have to bootstrap this entire rest of your mission by yourself. What was that like, knowing that now there's no way back and it's all on you? Were you scared then more so than Carlos Matos?
I wasn't scared, never scared, mate, but I was a little bit confused, because, producing anything of substance or even length is a mighty task. even with a bunch of people working together. So I just assumed a great deal of weight upon my shoulders in that moment. And as I say in the series, I could, I thought about doubling down and just calling it a day and going home, but I didn't.
Nope.
And that's
I'm
thanks
glad
to
you
Tom.
didn't.
That's thanks to Tomo. Tomo's a good motivator. You don't catch much of him on camera, but when he speaks with conviction. And I appreciate that, man, very much.
Beautiful. And here again, some secret messages. We see your first hair fly away, which is again starting to point up and to the right, strangely enough. But now you've changed quite a bit. We can tell that you've invested a lot of your time and life into this journey. Your hair is now, haggard and longer, and your beard is much more full, and you're even in the local kind of accoutrements of wherever you are. Can you tell us a little bit about this next location without giving up anything, so people see this amazing thing that you've put on film? But doesn't this location lend to you getting an award for war correspondence, because shots were fired and you did have to take cover?
I'd accept that award, I guess, but it's not like I was under fire at length. It was a short, momentary sort of experience. That said, we didn't, as you can see, there's not a great deal of places to hide amongst that scenery. It's all quite flat. But yeah, I mean, what can I say? I think
it sounded so real. Is that the iMovie again? Because I had that scene running on my big screen television.
No,
with the
that's
big audio
all real.
system.
That's all for real, mate.
And man, that was like scary.
Yeah,
did the crew have flak jackets?
M16. I think it was an M16 from the sound of it. But
do you think that might have been his security detail, or because we could only see the hairline there, and could have been him too?
It's tough to. I thought it was him. I thought it was him.
Right.
The man himself.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if you look at the flag that was flying as well,
correct,
on the top of the castle, you'll see like it's the Danish flag, which is by now everyone would know that's where Richard is.
Right.
He's in Danish land. So
Daneland. Oh, Danish land.
Daneland. Is that what they call it?
The Danes never lie.
By the way, here's what I was calling this out. This immensely obscene flyaway you've got right here is going up and to the right, as you can see that, right? I mean, a lot like Alfalfa from the Little Rascals, yours is far longer, I believe. But
there's a lot of signals. You've identified a lot of trading signals in this series. Unfortunately, they haven't been reflective of the results of my.
That'll happen. That'll all happen.
Speculation.
But did you on that comment, did you realize that there is kind of a cyclical nature to this market, and it has to do still being kind of pegged to this halvening with Bitcoin? So maybe you got in mid-cycle because you've only been following this crypto thing for how many years now? Three years? Maybe you're due for the next parabolic rise to hit it on the beginning of that. Have you been DCAing in this bear market is also another question.
I haven't actually. I don't really interact too much with blockchains.
I see.
I find it cumbersome and annoying.
Speaking of annoying, so you got to sit down with Eric Wall, and he's the one person as you tweeted out, that gave you a negative response to the documentary. I think, and I want to save this for the viewers, because you really pack a wall up in this fourth episode, where you get a vulnerability out of Eric that we've never seen before. He's really been a chief troll from his ivory tower, casting aspersions down on the Hexagon community. But you cracked the freaking code with this interview, I got to say. How did you extract such truth from this gentleman here? It must have taken a great deal of effort.
I did my homework and I thought long and hard when I was preparing my questions. for what I was hoping to extract out of the interview. So just preparation, mate.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was shocked to find that the things he doesn't like about HEX have nothing to do with exactly what as the code is law, like he always likes to spout. His dislike of HEX is the apparent contribution to society, which he objects to. Do I have that right?
From the interview, it certainly could be interpreted that way, mate.
Fascinating. This was really a great moment. I mean, in a sea of good moments, this one was probably my favorite. And finally, my final 2 slides, and I have one bone to pick with you. I want to correct you on something. I can't leave you without doing so. But again, I have to draw that parallel again to Apocalypse Now. It's almost perfect the way you look at the very end of your journey versus you've definitely changed. Captain Willard also has those eyes like he's seen and become horror himself. Well, in your eyes too, I see something of a tired man, a wiser man, a man that has truly cracked the code and has brought truth to the general populace. Is there anything that was going through your mind when you were giving your summary that wasn't quite clear or conveyed on film? Was there something more you wanted to add, coming to the end of everything?
I think what I've summarized there in that scene is exactly, a crystallized version, because actually I wrote that denouement and it turned out to be over 11 minutes, and I was like putting it together and I was like, fucking hell, this is very long.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think I managed to get it down to 2 minutes or something. So no, I think everything's there. I mean, I feel like the work seen in totality is where it's at. It's if people don't see it in its entirety, then they might get a skewed perspective on what I've done here. But if they do make it to the end, then fair enough. Enough respect for doing that, and don't forget to tell your mates.
And by the way, Tom, I want to get, before I hit my last slide, which is where I want to kind of take issue with one thing that you said here in the summary. I think that I have not yet seen anyone that's evaluated this thing of ours from a position of pure research and understanding. And I couldn't fault you for any of the details that you provided on this 4-hour mission. I thought it was exquisite. It is testament to good journalism, incredible production value, and commitment to your craft. So kudos to you. And if you don't get an Emmy, it's only because it didn't broadcast on any media that could get an Emmy, but I would give you an
Australian
honorary.
television.
Exactly. So thank you for this.
Thanks for saying so, mate. Appreciate that.
And then finally, here's the zinger, and please don't hate me. At the end, you state, and this is going into Pulse Chain now. We've done HEX to death. The last little epilogue in terms of Pulse Chain that you offer is that surely there's other ways that are cost efficient for Hexicans to make use of their stakes and unstakes. However, I'll bring it to your attention at the very end sequence of this entire thing. You spend $18 to unstake a 1-year stake.
Crazy.
Do you find that reasonable? Judging that the entire value of your stake at that point was something like $500, and you're spending $18 simply given to the validators, or at this point it was miners, right? So giving this to the miners, do you think that that's A, fair and cost effective, and B, do you still think that there's any way that Hexicans can move their stakes onto any other cost effective manner? Because my understanding, and I've looked for it, is that there is not. Once you stake, you're committed to the Ethereum blockchain. You cannot send those traditional stakes anywhere else, and you must pay this VIG to the miners, this blood money to the miners to get out of your stakes. And that is primarily, I believe, why Richard made Pulse Chain, to free us of this. But again, would you like to correct yourself from your statement that said that surely there are other ways that Hexicans can use, other more gas effective methods to end their stakes?
Right, okay. I don't know what the direct quote is that you are talking about, but I think the Ethereum miners at that time, were being compensated for the costs that they have incurred through running their equipment, I assume. That said, proof of work, it's probably got a hard road ahead, and I think only more and more shit will get piled upon it due to its, cost of barrier to entry for the gear, and that's a fair criticism. However, when it comes to proof of stake with these validators as well, I'm not entirely sure that's going to result in an increase in decentralization, which is what I understand everybody wants in this space. So to try to keep it balanced, and definitely not fucking financial advice or investment advice.
Yeah, no, that's not what we do here. Yeah.
I Pulse Chain as well was always kind of in the periphery on this investigation. I never zoomed in on it. I didn't sacrifice or what have you. So I kind of, it was just sort of buzzing in my ear, in parallel. So I didn't look at it that closely. And if it ever does launch, I hope that the Hexicans get very, very happy about not having to pay, these transaction fees on other networks. Assuming that's what will happen. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. But you know what? There you go again, using the proper nomenclature, understanding the right time frame, understanding the motivations of why people would be doing something like a sacrifice, and then looking out into the future, and then only then offering a judgment. And for that, I give you infinite amount, a more than a modicum, but certainly less than a truckload of respect for doing what you've done and committing it for the ages on film. Thank you so much.
May I ask you one final thing? Because I know we're running out of time, but I need to ask you this final thing, because watching the Eric Wall interview, because Eric Wall, I mean, that's the guy, right? He runs a $1 billion hedge fund, which, okay, at the moment is also like 80% down in performance of the last 12 months, but that's just legacy markets, that's nothing to worry. And he has over 100,000 followers on Twitter. So whatever he's saying, that surely must hold some weight. And it came to me that the difference in the interpretation of decentralization, I think this is maybe the main conflict here that you managed to work out so well, that they all bolster the people who speak against HEX, that they say it's not decentralized because of the OA holdings, and they hold such a large amount, whereas the Hexican argument is, no, we know that is a centralized supply. We are not talking about that at all. But for us, decentralization means, again, what this lady said that you interviewed with the NFTs, that there are no middlemen involved, that it's just, forget about the supply, that you always hold your own keys and you run the functions on the code. Would you say that's a fair interpretation of what you learned about the centralization aspect of HEX?
I would.
Or decentralization?
I would, and I cottoned on to the fact that was, to some extent, the more sort of universal and important story to be told to a certain extent.
Right.
Because I could have made a Hexicans documentary that would, like the other production, which was primarily for Hexicans, I assume. And then, then I would have limited my audience reach had I not been a, peddler of HEX, which I still am not. I don't believe that I think this miniseries is a fair observation of what Hex and the Hexicans believe, and I think it reaches a bit further out than just that community, and that's kind of my hope going forward, is that people won't be so put off by the by the fact that they don't take the time to look a little bit closer and realize, hang on, this is not just about Hex. This is about the entire crypto, crypto space. And there's some important messages. And there's a few Hexicans that have commented on Twitter, and they got the message.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Yeah, we're almost out of time. We definitely want to tell us about this.
Yeah. Can you talk us through this? So this is the bitjoinery.uncut.fm. The link is in the description. And Tom, what can we see here? Like if we here it is, Hexicans and the time value of money. So if we click on this.
So this is another way to mint access. You mint this and you get is another way to buy the series basically. But in this case, the crypto or whatever you pay, you can pay with cards there and stuff. Ether. That goes into a treasury, right? And this is a collective it's a collective. I think there's about 40 of us now, or 40 people in this collective. And the idea is to try to get that treasury, banked properly for future productions that will develop and produce as a collective, rather than just me and Tomo and Tommy and Scotty in marketing. So the idea it's a future ambition, basically. Pool in resources, capital plus awesome fucking humans equals future investigation productions.
Awesome.
We'll see how it pans out.
Yep, I'm sure if we have anything to do with it, we'll be there for the next one and help to support you on your next mission if it's dealt with so deftly as this last one was. We look forward to seeing your next one. And that's about all the time that we have, though. Tom, we welcome you to just stick around for our green room. We're actually going to be led out directly to Gonzo's Hexican Barbecue, and the drinks are on.
Yeah. Perfect. Cheers, fellas.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you, Tom.
Take care, everyone.
All right.
I guess it's an outro for us, man. Tom Gillespie. We'll see him in the green room in a second. Everyone, thanks a lot for coming by. Our second show, our first guest. Thank you very much.
Outro.